The rain had been falling since 5 o'clock, and by the time Maya Chun finally ducked under the awning of the amber room, her blazer was soaked through and her carefully flat-ironed hair had given up entirely and gone wavy. She stood in the doorway for a moment, shaking water from her hands, squinting into the warm amber light of the bar as though she were coming in from a different world entirely, which, she supposed, she was. The world she was coming in from was one of cardboard boxes, bubble wrap, and the particular kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from moving across an entire country in 3 days. She'd driven from Portland to Chicago with 2 suitcases, a carry-on, a box of books she refused to leave behind, and the persistent, low-level anxiety of a woman who had just accepted the most important job of her life and wasn't entirely sure she deserved it. Senior graphic designer at Looming Creative Agency. The words still felt foreign in her mouth, like a language she was just starting to learn. She'd been saying them to herself in the car for 2 days. Senior graphic designer at Lumen. Senior graphic designer at Lumen. Like a mantra. Like a prayer. She was 28 years old and she was terrified. The amber room was exactly what she needed. It was one of those bars that looked like it had grown organically from the walls of the building rather than been installed. Dark wood paneling. Leather bar stools worn smooth by decades of elbows. A long mahogany bar with a brass rail that gleamed under the low lights. Jazz played from somewhere low and smoky. The bartender, a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes, nodded at her as she came in. Maya found a stool at the end of the bar, the kind of corner spot that felt protected, and peeled off her soaked blazer. She draped it over the stool beside her and ordered a glass of red wine, something Chilean, mid-range, not the cheapest option but not extravagant either. She was going to be careful with money until her first paycheck. That was the plan. The plan lasted approximately 8 minutes. That was how long it took for the woman to sit down next to her. Maya heard her before she saw her. The sound of someone settling into a bar stool with a particular kind of composed grace. The quiet thud of a bag being set on the bar, the soft clearing of a throat. Then she smelled her perfume. Something warm and complex, sandalwood maybe, with something citrus underneath, and she turned just slightly. Out of instinct, the woman was, and Maya would spend a great deal of time in the weeks that followed trying to find the right word for what this woman was. Striking. Not beautiful in the conventional, immediately obvious way, though she was certainly that too. She was the kind of striking that came from something internal. Some quality of presence or confidence or intelligence that arranged itself across someone's features and made them impossible to look away from. She was perhaps 34 or 35, with dark brown hair cut in a clean, elegant style that fell just past her jaw. Her skin was a warm olive tone, flushed slightly from the cold, and her eyes, when she glanced over and caught Maya staring, were a remarkable shade of hazel, greenish and golden at once, like light through autumn leaves. She wore a charcoal blazer over a white silk blouse, and she wore them the way women wear clothes, when they have stopped trying to dress to impress anyone, and have simply started dressing for themselves. She was the most beautiful woman Maya had ever seen in real life. Maya looked away so fast she nearly gave herself whiplash. Long day? The woman said. Maya turned back slowly as though she hadn't just been staring. Sorry? The woman nodded at Maya's wine glass, which was already half empty. You're drinking like someone who had a long day. Maya laughed despite herself. Is it that obvious? Only a little. The woman's mouth curved, not quite a smile, but the beginning of one, like it was being considered. She had a voice that was low and measured, the kind of voice that seemed accustomed to being listened to. I'm having one too, if it helps. Long day. It does, a little. Maya extended her hand. Maya, Rowan. The woman shook her hand, firm, warm, brief. Then she turned to signal the bartender. What are you drinking? Oh, I'm fine. I'm ordering a bottle anyway. Glasses are wasteful when you're doing serious drinking. She said this entirely without irony, as though it were simply a logical observation. Unless you'd rather be alone. I can absolutely respect that. No, Maya said before she could think better of it. No, company sounds good, actually. Rowan ordered a bottle of Malbec and 2 glasses, and the bartender brought them without ceremony. She poured for both of them and settled back against the bar, turning slightly so she was facing Maya at an angle. An easy posture. The posture of someone who moved through the world without performing comfort, who simply was comfortable. New to Chicago? Rowan asked. Maya blinked. How did you know? You keep looking around like you're cataloging the room. People who live somewhere stop saying it after a while. A small pause. Also, your jacket tag is sticking out. It's from a Portland boutique. Maya reached back and tucked in the tag and laughed. A real laugh this time, embarrassed but genuine. That obvious. What brings you here? A job, Maya said. I start Monday. She hesitated, then added, I'm a graphic designer. I just got hired at WLW. It's a creative agency. Bigger than anything I've worked for before. I keep wondering if they made a mistake. Rowan studied her. Why would they have made a mistake? I'm not sure I'm ready for it. Are you qualified for it? On paper, yes. Then you're probably ready for it. Rowan said this simply with a certainty that wasn't unkind. Imposter syndrome is almost always a sign that you care enough to be scared. People who aren't ready usually aren't scared enough. Maya looked at her. That's a surprisingly comforting thing to say to a stranger. I'm full of those. The suggestion of a smile again. What field are you in, if you don't mind my asking? Branding, mostly. Visual identity, brand strategy. I did some editorial work in Portland, but this is more corporate, I suppose. Higher stakes. The clients are bigger. Rowan nodded, listening with what felt like genuine attention, the kind that was rare in casual conversation. She asked good questions, not invasive, but curious. She wanted to know about Maya's work in Portland, about what had made her take the leap, about what she was most excited to explore. She didn't interrupt. She didn't look at her phone. She made Maya feel in the way that very few people do in a first conversation. Entirely worth listening to, Maya found herself talking more than she normally would. She talked about the freelance years before she'd gotten hired at her agency in Portland, the grinding uncertainty of that period, the way she'd built her portfolio piece by piece. She talked about her specialty. She had a particular gift. She'd been told for color and typography, for the way words could be arranged on a page to create emotional responses that the words themselves didn't quite explain. She talked about loving the moment when a brand's visual identity clicked into place. When you saw the thing you've been working toward and knew, suddenly and completely, this is it. Rowan listened to all of it. Then she said, You love it. What? Your work. You light up when you talk about it. She said this without sentimentality, a simple observation. That matters. More than people realize. Maya looked at her, really looked at her for a moment, studying the clean planes of her face in the amber light. What do you do? She asked. For work? Something shifted slightly in Rowan's expression. A small, contained smile. I'm in the creative industry as well, she said. Leadership side mostly. Operations, vision, that kind of thing. Do you love it? A pause, then most days, yes. Some days it feels more like, she searched for the word. Stewardship. You love something, so you take care of it. It's not always exciting. But it matters. That's a beautiful way to think about work. Rowan looked at her. The look lasted a beat longer than a casual glance. It's a beautiful night, she said instead of responding, glancing toward the rain-streaked window. In a miserable way. Maya laughed. The best kind. They drank their wine. The conversation moved, as good conversations do, without clear direction, following its own logic. They talked about Chicago, which Rowan knew well, the neighborhoods, the particular way the wind came off the lake in winter, the way the city felt different in summer and winter, and how both versions were worth loving. They talked about books. They both recently read the same novel, a quiet literary one about a woman returning to her hometown. And they had precisely opposite reactions to the ending, which led to a 30-minute debate that was the most alive Maya had felt in weeks. She found herself watching Rowan's hands as she talked, the way she used them sparingly but deliberately, the way her long fingers wrapped around her wine glass. She found herself watching the way Rowan's eyes moved when she was thinking, the slight inward quality of her gaze as she assembled her thoughts. She found herself, and this she noticed with a kind of startled awareness, leaning slightly forward on her stool, orienting toward Rowan the way a plant orients toward light. Oh, Maya thought. Oh, this is a problem because Maya had been in this situation before. The specific, inconvenient situation of feeling immediately and intensely drawn to a woman she'd only just met. It had happened exactly twice in her life before, and both times it had ended with her heart in pieces and her dignity barely intact. She was supposed to be starting fresh. She was supposed to be professional and focused and sensible. She was supposed to not fall for a stranger in a bar. The night before her new job, she poured herself more wine. You've gone quiet. Rowan observed. Sorry, just thinking. About? Starting over, Maya said honestly. Whether it's possible to actually do it. Start over somewhere new and be different, better. Rowan considered this. I think you can start over, she said. But I don't think you can be different. You can only be more fully yourself. She paused. Which might be what you mean by better. Maya looked at her for a long moment. How are you this thoughtful with a stranger in a bar? Practice, Rowan said simply. And something in her tone suggested this was true in a way that had cost her something. The bar had grown busier around them without Maya quite noticing, filling with the Friday night crowd, and the jazz had shifted to something louder, something with more brass. They had to lean slightly closer to hear each other, and Maya was aware, acutely, distractingly aware of the warm nearness of Rowan, the faint trace of her perfume. The way she sometimes turned her head, so her jaw, was in profile against the amber light dot. At some point they moved from the bar to a small table near the back, and the bottle of Malbec came with them, and Rowan ordered a cheese plate that arrived with small clusters of grapes and a little pot of honey. And they ate without ceremony while they talked. It felt comfortable in the specific way that some rare conversations feel comfortable, not because there was no tension, but because the tension was clean and mutual and unafraid. Maya asked about Rowan's life in Chicago. Carefully, the way you ask when you want to know but don't want to seem like you want to know too much. She found out that Rowan had grown up in New England, had moved to Chicago 12 years ago, had stayed. She found out that Rowan ran every morning and that she hated it and did it anyway. She found out that Rowan had a cat named Gertrude, which made Maya laugh delightedly, and that Gertrude was, by Rowan's own assessment, deeply unimpressed with me most of the time, which I find appropriately humbling. She didn't find out if Rowan was single. She didn't ask. Some things you hold off on asking because you're not sure you want the answer. The evening deepened. The rain outside continued in steady sheets. They finished the wine. At some point, Maya realized with mild alarm that it was nearly 11 o'clock and she had been in this bar for 3 hours and every minute of it had felt like no time at all. I should probably go, she said. Not wanting to, Rowan looked at her for a moment. You should sleep, she agreed. Big day Monday. Big day Monday, Maya echoed. She started pulling on her still damp blazer. This was really nice. Thank you. The wine and the company and the unsolicited career advice? Yes, that too. Rowan smiled then, a real smile, full warm, the kind that rearranged her face entirely and made her suddenly seem younger, lighter, like something she'd been holding had been set down. It was devastating. Maya filed it away somewhere in the vicinity of her heart and knew she would think about it later. They walked toward the door together. Rowan helped her hail a cab, the old-fashioned way, arm raised. Stepping into the edge of the rain, and when the yellow cab pulled to the curb, she held the door. Good luck Monday, she said. Thank you. Maya paused, half in and half out of the cab. I hope your long day gets better. It already has. Said quietly, directly, with that same quality of simple honesty. Not flirtatious. Just true out. Maya got in the cab. She watched through the rain-blurred window as Rowan raised one hand in a small wave and then turned back to the bar. And Maya watched until she disappeared, and then she sat back against the seat and said quietly to no one, well, that was unfortunate, because she was already thinking about her. She thought about her all the way home to her half-unpacked apartment with its cardboard boxes and its one lamp and its bare walls. And she thought about her while she brushed her teeth and changed into pajamas. And she thought about her the way she said practice, the way her eyes went inward when she was thinking, the warm particular pressure of her hand when they'd shaken hands hello as she fell asleep. She did not tell herself to stop thinking about her. That ship had sailed. Maya arrived at Lumen. creative agency at 8:45 on Monday morning, which was 15 minutes early and which she had calculated was the correct amount of early enough to demonstrate punctuality and conscientiousness, not so early as to seem anxious or underslept. She was, in fact, both anxious and underslept. But she had decided the world did not need to know that. Lumen occupied the top 2 floors of a glass building on Michigan Avenue, and the lobby was exactly the kind of lobby that said this company takes itself seriously. High ceilings, carefully chosen art on the walls, a reception desk made of pale wood and brushed steel. Maya stood at the front desk and gave her name to a young man with excellent posture who smiled warmly and told her that someone from HR would be right down. She smoothed her blazer, looked at the art on the walls. It was good art, thoughtful selections, a mix of local and international work, nothing predictable. She approved. The young woman from HR, whose name was Priya, was bright and efficient and extremely kind. She walked Maya through the building, showed her where things were, the kitchen, the meeting rooms, the studio spaces, the quiet room that had been set aside for focused work, and explained the general shape of Maya's first week. Onboarding, orientation, getting acquainted with the current client roster, meeting the team. The design team was on the upper floor. They were called the Creative Studio, and they occupied a wide, open space full of light with long work tables and adjustable monitors and walls covered in pinned-up work. There were 8 designers and 3 senior designers, and Maya would be joining as one of the senior designers with a particular focus on brand identity. The creative director will want to meet with you today, Priya said as they came off the elevator onto the upper floor. She usually does one-on-ones with new senior hires in the first week. I'll put something on your calendar. Sure, Maya said, still looking around, taking in the space. There were people at their desks, a few looked up and smiled, a few were too absorbed to notice. Music played softly from somewhere. Good music. She felt a flutter of something that might have been excitement alongside the anxiety. You belong here, she told herself. You earned this. Priya showed her to her workstation, a beautiful, well-positioned desk with a large monitor and an adjustable lamp and a window that looked out over the city, and said she'd have the day to get set up, and then Priya would be back at 2 for the formal onboarding session. Maya sat at her desk. She opened her laptop. She looked at the window, at the gray sky over Chicago, at the buildings cutting up toward the clouds. She breathed. She was here. She had done it. She was still sitting there, breathing. When she heard the room change, it was subtle, the way the ambient sound shifted slightly, the way a few people's attention moved. She looked up and saw, across the open studio, a woman coming through the glass doors at the far end. The woman walked with the particular quality of someone who knew exactly where they were going and did not need to announce it. She wore a deep green dress and dark heels, and her hair was down. And she was looking at her phone as she walked, but with the kind of divided attention that suggested she was also simultaneously tracking everything else in her peripheral field. Then she looked up. And across the length of the studio, she looked directly at Maya. The world did something very strange, because the woman was Rowan, the woman from the bar on Friday night. The woman with the sandalwood perfume and the hazel eyes and the devastating full smile and the voice like something warm. The woman Maya had spent the entire weekend thinking about and trying not to think about and thinking about anyway. Woman was standing in the middle of the Lumen Creative Agency studio looking at Maya with an expression that was just briefly, completely unguarded. Wide eyes. A flash of something that moved across her face like weather and was gone just as fast. Then Rowan Ashford, because of course that was her name. Maya would learn it in approximately 4 minutes, composed herself, and continued walking, and did not look at Maya again for the rest of the morning. Priya came back at 10 with Maya's orientation materials, and it was during this that she mentioned, casually, in the way you mention things that are simply facts, "Oh, and the creative director, that's Rowan Ashford. You'll love her. She's brilliant, a bit intimidating at first, but very fair. She built this whole creative division basically from scratch." Maya nodded. "Great," she said. Her voice was very level. She was very proud of how level her voice was. "She want to meet with you later this week," Priya said. "She does intro meetings with all senior hires. She takes the team very seriously. Looking forward to it." Maya said she was a very good liar when she needed to be. The meeting was scheduled for Wednesday at 3 in the 48 hours between Monday morning and Wednesday afternoon. Maya learned the following things. Rowan Ashford was the creative director of Lumen Creative Agency. She had been in the role for 6 years and had, in that time, grown the agency's revenue by nearly 300%. She was considered one of the most respected creative leaders in the Chicago market. She was demanding and exacting, and her standards were, as Maya heard from multiple colleagues in multiple conversations, not for the faint of heart. She was also deeply, genuinely invested in her team's growth and well-being, fair to a degree that inspired real loyalty and possessed of a dry, contained humor that emerged occasionally. When she was comfortable, she had a cat named Gertrude. She ran every morning. She had spent Friday night drinking Malbec in a bar with Maya and talking about books and work and starting over, and had said, "It already has," when Maya wished her a better day. And she had absolutely, definitely, certainly known who Maya was when she said it. Maya had gone back over the conversation approximately 400 times by Wednesday morning. "I'm in the creative industry as well. Leadership side, mostly. True, technically, entirely, carefully true. Not a lie. Just significant omission. The kind of omission you make when you've decided you want to have a conversation with someone without the weight of who you are coloring how they respond to you." Maya didn't know what to do with this. She genuinely did not know. On one hand, her boss. This was her boss. This was the person who would evaluate her work and determine her trajectory at this company, and who held her professional future in her very elegant, competent hands. Falling for her boss was not something Maya was going to do. She had a whole list of things she was going to do. Work hard, make an impression, build something here, and falling for her boss was not on it. On the other hand, the way Rowan had looked at her across the studio on Monday, the fraction of a second before composure was restored, Maya pressed her palms flat on her desk and breathed. Professional, she told herself. You can do professional. The meeting room on the upper floor had glass walls and a small round table and 2 chairs. Rowan was already there when Maya arrived, exactly at 3, not a minute early or late. She was standing at the window with a tablet in her hand, looking at something on the screen, and she looked up when Maya came in. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Rowan said, "Maya, please sit." Her voice was exactly as Maya remembered. Low, measured, warm underneath, Maya said. Rowan sat across from her. Between them, the small round table, which suddenly felt like both the most and least important piece of furniture in the world. "Thank you for coming in," Rowan said, with a formality that was professional and slightly absurd given what they both knew. "I like to do these conversations with all new senior hires in the first week. Get a sense of who you are, how you like to work, what you're hoping to build here." "Of course," Maya said. "I appreciate it." A beat. Rowan looked at her. There was something in her expression that was controlled but not cold, the look of someone who has made a decision and is going to honor it. "I should acknowledge," Rowan said carefully, "that we've met before." Yes, Maya met her eyes. Friday night, yes. Rowan held her gaze. "I want to be transparent about that, and to also be clear that I don't intend for it to affect our professional relationship in any way. What happened on Friday was," she paused just slightly, "a coincidence? A pleasant one. But this is work, and I take my responsibility to you as a manager and to this team seriously." Maya nodded. "I understand. And I appreciate you saying that directly. I'm a direct person. The faintest suggestion of a wry note. You may have gathered that. I did gather that, yes." Something eased fractionally in the room. Not much, but something. "So," Rowan said, and opened her tablet to what was clearly a set of notes. "Tell me about how you work." And Maya did. She talked about her process, the research phase she didn't like to skip, the period of conceptual mess sciences that preceded clarity, the way she tested ideas against each other, her relationship with feedback. She talked about what she found challenging and what came naturally. She was honest, perhaps more honest than was strictly strategic, because this was Rowan. And something about Rowan made dishonesty feel both impossible and beside the point. Rowan asked good questions. The same quality of attention she brought to Friday night, genuine, focused, unhurried. She asked about projects Maya was proud of, about ones that hadn't worked, about what she'd learned from each. She pushed back, gently, on a couple of things Maya said, not to disagree but to test the reasoning. To see how Maya defended her positions, Maya defended them well. She could feel herself becoming more alive as the conversation went on, more confident, more herself. At one point, Rowan said, "You said you're good at the moment when something clicks. When you suddenly see the solution. Can you describe that? What it feels like, what precedes it?" Maya thought for a moment. It usually comes after a period of feeling lost," she said. "Like I've been turning the problem over and over and nothing is working, and I start to think maybe there's nothing to find. And then something shifts. Sometimes it's something external, a color I see somewhere, a phrase in something I'm reading. Sometimes it's internal, something just settles. And suddenly I can see the shape of it. The whole shape, all at once." She paused. "It's the best feeling in the world, honestly. Better than almost anything." Rowan studied her. "Better than almost anything." "Almost," Maya said and held her gaze. Rowan looked away first. "Wrote something on her tablet." "Good," she said professionally. "I'm looking forward to seeing that in practice." When Maya stood to leave, they shook hands again, the second time now that they'd shaken hands. And Maya was very careful to make it brief and businesslike. She made it all the way to the door before Rowan said her name. She turned. Rowan was still at the table, tablet in hand, not quite looking at her. "I'm glad the job is everything you hoped," she said, quietly, not quite to the room. Not quite to Maya, somewhere in between. Maya went back to her desk and sat down and didn't say anything to anyone for about 10 minutes. September turned into October with a particular abruptness that Chicago autumns are known for. An overnight shift from warm to cold that left the city looking simultaneously gorgeous and startled. The leaves in Millennium Park went gold and orange. The wind off the lake acquired teeth. The early darkness crept in by degrees, and the light in the Lumen studio took on a quality that Maya came to love, low and golden and slightly precious. Like it knew something the summer light hadn't. She was good at her job. This she discovered with a relief so profound it verged on physical. The first project she was assigned was a rebrand for a mid-sized tech company, Clean. Somewhat generic in its current identity, in need of something that felt both innovative and trustworthy. Maya spent 2 weeks immersed in it. She pored over the company's history, its culture, interviews with its leadership. She built mood boards and discarded them. She went through typefaces like a restless editor through manuscripts. She sat with the color problem. They wanted blue, the safe tech company blue. But Maya felt something pull at her toward a different direction, toward a deep, quieter blue-green. Something oceanic and intelligent. She presented her initial concepts on a Thursday afternoon. There were 6 people in the room, including her creative lead, Marcus, a warm, large-hearted man with a shaved head and a weakness for very strong coffee. And Rowan, who sat at the back of the room and listened. Maya had been aware of Rowan's presence in rooms for 6 weeks now. It was something she had decided to manage, the way you manage a chronic, low-level condition. You don't pretend it isn't there, but you don't let it run your life either. You take your medication, in this case, rigorous professional conduct and an absolute refusal to let her eyes linger. And you function. She presented her concepts with calm clarity. She talked through her thinking, the research, the reasoning behind each choice. The blue-green. The type system she developed, clean and geometric, but with a slight warmth in its proportions. The way the elements of the identity worked together across different applications. When she finished, the room was quiet for a moment, then Marcus said, "I love the color. I was skeptical when you described it, but seeing it, yeah. That's right." The other designers had specific questions, good ones, and Maya answered them. And then finally, she looked toward Rowan. Rowan had been still throughout the presentation. One leg crossed over the other, tablet resting in her lap, watching. Now she looked at the boards on the wall, really looked, the way she looked at things, with a focused quality that made it feel like she was reading them. "The secondary typeface," she said. "In the body system. Is it doing enough?" Maya paused, looked at it with fresh eyes, felt something in her chest shift, that small anxious tilt that happened when she suspected she was right about something that would require more work. "You think it's too safe?" I think it might be the one place the system is hedging. Not a criticism. An observation. The primary face is confident. The secondary is careful. I wonder if they're from the same family. Maya looked at the boards. Looked at them honestly. I think you might be right, she said and meant it. Rowan nodded. Worth exploring. She uncrossed her legs, stood, looked at the boards one more time. The color is exactly right, she said, and left. Maya worked on the secondary typeface for 4 days. She found the right one on a Thursday evening at 7 o'clock after everyone else had gone home. When she was alone in the studio with the city lights starting to come on below and a playlist that had long since stopped registering consciously, she pulled a typeface she'd worked with briefly in Portland. A Dutch face, slightly idiosyncratic, with small details in its letter forms that made it feel alive. She put it in the system. Looked at it. Oh, she thought. There it is. She stayed another hour. Updating the boards, feeling that particular clean joy that came from finding the thing you'd been looking for. She didn't know that Rowan had come back, had forgotten something in her office and had come back for it and had walked past the studio and had stopped when she saw the lights still on and had stood in the glass doorway for a moment watching Maya work. Maya didn't know because she had her back to the door, headphones on, completely absorbed, moving between her desk and the wall where the boards were pinned, adjusting and looking and adjusting again. She found out later that this had happened. She found out because Marcus told her cheerfully that Rowan had mentioned to him that Maya's work ethic was notable. He said this like it was a great compliment, which it was. Maya accepted the compliment and tried not to think about the fact that Rowan had watched her work in the quiet studio and said nothing and gone away again. The thing about working closely with someone you are trying very hard not to be in love with is that the trying itself becomes a kind of intimacy. Maya knew Rowan's schedule without meaning to. She knew that Rowan arrived at 8:15, and that this was the 20 minutes she used to read through overnight emails and plan her day, and that she did not like to be interrupted in these 20 minutes unless it was urgent. She knew that Rowan took her coffee black with 1 sugar, and that she made it herself rather than asking anyone else to, and that she did this in the kitchen at the same time most mornings, and that she sometimes stood at the kitchen window looking at the city while she waited for the coffee machine. She knew that Rowan moved differently in the studio when she was working through a problem. There was a slight restlessness, a quality of contained energy that was different from normal composure, and that this was not anxiety but thought. She knew that Rowan laughed, really laughed at exactly 3 things: dry and absurd observations from Marcus, the occasional spectacular client absurdity recounted in meetings, and twice at something Maya herself had said. The first time, they'd been in a meeting about a client who had sent a feedback note asking if they could change the brand colors to something more plaid, and Maya had said without thinking, "We could always just put a kilt on the logo," and Rowan had laughed. A real laugh, low and sudden, and then covered it with a professional cough. And Maya had had to look very hard at the table for a moment. The second time, they'd been walking out of the building at the same time one evening. A coincidence of timing, and it was raining again. And Maya had fished in her bag for her umbrella and discovered she'd accidentally brought a child's umbrella from the lost and found box by the elevator. A tiny dinosaur print umbrella from which she emerged looking like she was wearing a novelty hat. And Rowan had stopped on the sidewalk and looked at her and then laughed. A clear, unguarded laugh that she didn't bother to contain. And said, "Where on earth did you get that?" And Maya had laughed too. And for about 45 seconds they'd stood in the rain giggling at each other like 2 people who were not maintaining careful professional distance at all. Then Rowan had said, "Share mine," and held out her umbrella. And they'd walked to the end of the block together under it. And Maya had been aware of nothing in the world except the warmth of being close to her, their shoulders almost touching under the inadequate span of the umbrella. And then Rowan's car had been there, and Rowan had said goodnight. Maya, in that particular quiet way she said Maya's name sometimes. And Maya had walked to the subway stop in the rain, the stupid dinosaur umbrella providing approximately 0 actual coverage, and had not thought about anything else for the entire ride home. She made a friend. This was important to mention because it wasn't just Rowan. She was building a life here, a real one. The friend was a woman named Jade, who was one of the other senior designers, her specialty was motion graphics, and she was astonishingly good at it, and who had the quality of someone who is immediately and permanently warm to people she likes. She'd adopted Maya by the end of week 2 with the efficiency of someone who has identified a person worth keeping. Jade was the one who told Maya, on a Wednesday evening over drinks, that Rowan was single. She said it without particular agenda. It came up in the context of a conversation about the holiday party and who was bringing significant others and who wasn't, and Maya received the information with what she hoped was the appropriate level of casual interest and not the actual level, which was approximately a woman in a desert finding water. She was with someone for a while, Jade said, refilling Maya's glass. Another woman, a lawyer. But that ended maybe 2 years ago. Since then, nothing as far as anyone knows. She keeps her personal life very close to her chest. She does seem private, Maya said neutrally. Private is an understatement. Jade looked at her. Jade had very sharp eyes. Why are you asking about Rowan? I'm not. You didn't ask, but you also did not ask, which is basically asking. Maya looked at her wine glass. It's complicated. Complicated how? And this was the thing about Jade, she had a quality that made you want to tell her things. Not because she pushed, but because she received information with such complete non-judgment that telling her felt like setting something down in a safe place. So Maya told her about the bar, about Friday night, about Malbec and books, and it already has, and then showing up on Monday morning. Jade listened to the whole thing without interrupting and then was quiet for a moment and then said, "Oh my God, I know. That is an extraordinary amount of romantic complication. I know. Do you still think about it?" "I think about it every day," Maya said simply. Jade was quiet again. "Then, does she know you think about it?" Maya thought about the way Rowan said her name. The way she'd watched Maya present that afternoon and then said the color is exactly right as she was leaving. The way she held out her umbrella in the rain. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe." The project that changed everything was the Orison account. Orison was a nonprofit medical research, specifically rare pediatric diseases, and they needed a complete visual rebrand in preparation for a major fundraising campaign. The account came in at the beginning of November, and Rowan assigned it to Maya with Marcus as creative lead. And Maya understood immediately that this was not a test. Exactly, but it was certainly a demonstration of trust. Orison was important to Rowan. She mentioned it in the kickoff meeting with a weight that wasn't there. For other accounts, Maya went home that night and looked up Orison's history. She found, buried in a 2018 interview, a note that Rowan Ashford had personally been involved in connecting them with their first major donor, that she'd championed their cause before Lumen was even on their radar. She understood then that this wasn't just a client. This was something Rowan cared about on a level that was separate from business. She did not tell Rowan she knew this. She simply went to work. She worked harder on Orison than she had worked on anything. She spoke to the organization's founders. She spoke to parents of children with the diseases they researched. She sat with the photographs they shared, not the clinical ones, but the human ones. The children at birthday parties, children learning to walk for the second time, children with their families in hospital rooms and also at the beach and also on swings, and she let those images work on her the way good research is supposed to work, not as data but as weight. As responsibility, as this matters, she came to the identity from a completely different direction than she would have for a corporate client. She thought about hope, not the easy poster version of hope, but the difficult, tenacious, evidence-based kind. She thought about what families in impossible situations reach for, and what it looks like when science reaches back. She built an identity around a particular image, a single, unbroken line, continuous and unwavering, moving through complexity. She built a color system around warm golds and deep greens, alive and growing. She built a typeface pairing that was simultaneously legible to exhausted, people reading quickly, and beautiful to people who had the luxury of looking slowly. She built application concepts for donation campaigns, for research materials, for the human-facing collateral. She worked on it for 2 weeks. She came in early and stayed late. She filled notebook pages. She threw things away. She started again. When it was done, she knew it was the best work she'd ever done. Not because it was technically perfect, it wasn't. There were rough edges. There were things she would keep refining, that because it was the most fully herself she had ever been in a piece of work. The color was exactly what she meant. The line was exactly what she meant. Everything was saying what she wanted it to say. She presented it to Rowan on a Tuesday morning, just the two of them in the glass meeting room. She'd asked Marcus if she could present directly to Rowan first, which was slightly unorthodox, but Marcus had shrugged and said sure, and Maya had known, even as she asked, that she wasn't entirely sure this was only about work. She stood at the front of the small room and walked Rowan through it. The research, the thinking, the choices. She talked about the family she'd spoken to, what they'd told her. She talked about the line, why a single unbroken line, what it was meant to say about continuity and persistence and the refusal to stop. Rowan sat and looked. She was very still. She was still in the way Maya had come to recognize as Rowan really looking. Rowan letting something actually land. When Maya finished, Rowan didn't say anything for a long moment, then she said, very quietly, Maya. Just her name. And then, this is exceptional work, not nice work or well done or great job. Exceptional. Maya held very still. Thank you. How did you? Rowan stopped. Started again. The line. How did you get to the line? Maya thought about how to answer this honestly. I thought about what it feels like to keep going, she said. When you don't know if it's working. When it's taking so long. I thought about what keeps people going in those situations, and I thought, it's just this one continuous act. Not heroism, just continuing. Rowan looked at the boards. My niece, she said, then stopped again. Maya waited. She was diagnosed with a rare mitochondrial disorder when she was 3, Rowan said. She's 11 now. She's remarkable. Completely remarkable. A pause. Orson funded part of the research into her treatment pathway. I didn't know that, Maya said. Of course not. But Rowan looked at the boards again. At the line. It says exactly the right thing. The room was very quiet. Outside the glass walls, the studio moved and hummed with the soft industry of people at work. I'm glad, Maya said. Rowan looked at her then. Directly in the professional distance that had been there since Monday, that careful, maintained thing was simply not there for a moment. She was just Rowan, the woman from the bar, looking at Maya with something open in her face that she hadn't allowed to be there in 2 months. Then it was back. She looked down at her tablet. Marcus should see this today. Then client presentation by end of week. Professional. Measured. Good work. Maya gathered her boards and left. She sat at her desk for a few minutes doing nothing at all. Just breathing. The client presentation went brilliantly. Orison's founders, a husband and wife team named the Patels, were moved to something close to tears by the direction. They asked good questions, made small notes, approved the general direction with enthusiasm. It was one of those presentations that goes better than you prepared for and leaves the room with a slightly disbelieving sense of having done something right afterward. The team went for drinks. Maya, Marcus, 2 of the junior designers who'd helped with production. Rowan came, which she didn't always do, and sat at the end of the bar and nursed a glass of white wine while everyone else talked, loudly and joyfully about the presentation. Marcus made a toast that was half celebration and half affectionate mockery of himself. The junior designers got slightly drunk and became giggly and warmed out. At one point, Maya found herself standing next to Rowan at the bar, a narrow space of quiet at the edge of the larger noise. She'd come to order another drink, and Rowan had been there, and there they were. You should be proud, Rowan said without preamble. Today was yours. It was the team's. The concept was yours. The thinking was yours. She looked at the bar surface, not at Maya. Don't minimize it. I'm not. Maya stopped. Thank you, really, for trusting me with it. Rowan was quiet for a moment. Then, how are you finding Chicago? After 2 months. The shift was so smooth it took Maya a second to register it. I love it, she said honestly. I didn't expect to this quickly. But I do. What do you love about it? Maya thought. The scale of it. Portland it's intimate. Chicago is big in a way that feels like it has room for you. Room to be ambitious without it feeling like you're crowding anyone out. She paused. And the lake. I didn't anticipate the lake. No one does. something almost fond in Rowan's voice. Where else have you been since you arrived? They talked briefly, quietly, under the noise of the group about Chicago. And Maya told her about the neighborhood she'd been exploring on weekends, Hilson and Logan Square. The long walk she'd taken along the lakefront in October before the cold got too serious. The restaurant she'd found in Ukrainian village that she'd gone to twice already. Rowan listened and occasionally offered something, a restaurant she should try in Lincoln Square. A gallery in the West Loop that had a good fall show on dot. It was the closest to Friday night that they'd been in 2 months. The same quality of conversation, that ease. The particular frequency of two people who happened to be on the same wavelength. Maya was aware of it. She was aware that Rowan was aware of it too. I should get back, Rowan said after a while. She straightened slightly. The invisible professional distance reasserted itself, the small, careful reset. Of course. Maya met her eyes. Rowan, Maya. Her voice was quiet. A warning and something else simultaneously. I wasn't going to say anything, Maya said softly. I just wanted to say congratulations on today. It's your work too. What you built here, this team. Today is partly yours. Rowan looked at her for a long moment. Her face did something complicated. Thank you, she said finally, and went back to her end of the bar. The Lumen holiday party was held in the second week of December at a venue in the West Loop, a beautiful industrial space with exposed brick and warm lighting and long tables laden with food. The entire agency attended, 60-something people. And there was an open bar and a playlist someone had curated with obvious care and an atmosphere of collective exhale after a busy year. Maya wore a deep, burgundy dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion. With her dark hair up, and Jade had taken one look at her and said, absolutely not. You look too good for this to be accidental, in a tone that was more accusation than compliment. She'd laughed and had a drink and mingled, and it was genuinely nice. She knew more people than she'd realized. The months of working together had built connections she hadn't been consciously tracking. She knew Marcus's children's names and that he was trying to learn woodworking. She knew that the junior designer Theo was applying to graduate school and was terrified. She knew that the accounts team lead, a woman named Sandra, had recently adopted a dog and showed Maya photos with the enthusiasm of a new parent. She was, she realized, happy here. Genuinely, solidly happy in a way that had very little to do with Rowan and everything to do with the work she was doing and the people she was doing it with and the city she was. Beginning to know this was important to know about herself. She was happy regardless. Rowan arrived late, 40 minutes after the party started. She came in from the cold with her coat over her arm and her hair slightly wind-tousled. And she'd changed from the tailored work outfit she'd had on during the day into a dress that was simple and dark and very beautiful. And Maya, who was mid-conversation with two colleagues when Rowan walked in, lost the thread of what she was saying entirely for approximately 4 seconds. She recovered. No one noticed. She carried on. The evening wound through itself. Speeches were made, a partner from the agency's leadership. Then Rowan, whose speech was brief and specific and warm, thanking people by name for things they'd actually done, which Maya had noticed was very much Rowan's way. No generic praise. Specific, genuine acknowledgement. And Maya Chun, Rowan said, toward the end, who joined us in September and in 3 months has done some of the most thoughtful brand work this agency has produced in years. Welcome to Chicago, Maya. The room applauded. Maya smiled and raised her glass and made brief eye contact with Rowan across the room, and Rowan held it for just a moment and looked away. Later, much later, when the party was thinning and some people had gone and the music had gotten quieter, Maya was standing at the bar alone. Jade had left an hour ago, laughing apologies about an early morning when Rowan appeared beside her. How's your evening? Rowan asked. She leaned against the bar, facing the room rather than Maya, but close enough. Good, Maya said. Really good, actually. You've settled in well. I have. Maya looked at her. In the low light in the dark dress, she looked less like the creative director and more like herself, the version Maya had met first. You mentioned in your speech the work I've done. You didn't have to say that. I said it because it's true. I know. But still, it meant something to me. Rowan turned her head slightly so she was looking at Maya in profile. There was something in her expression that was held carefully, like a cup too full to carry quickly. "Maya," she said, and stopped. "I know," Maya said quietly. "You don't know what I was going to say. No, but I know the shape of it." She kept her voice steady. "I'm not going anywhere, Rowan. I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know that." She stopped. Started again. "I still think about Friday night sometimes. That's all." I just wanted to say it out loud once to an actual person rather than to my ceiling at 2 in the morning. A very long pause. The music played softly. Somewhere behind them, someone laughed. "I think about it too," Rowan said, very quietly. Then, "I'm your boss, Maya. I know. That's not a small thing." "I know that too." She met Rowan's eyes. "I'm not asking you to do anything about it. I just needed to not pretend that Friday night didn't happen." Rowan looked at her for a long time. Her expression was complicated in a way Maya couldn't fully read, not unhappy, not closed, but very careful. Like someone standing at the edge of something deciding whether to step back. "It was a very good evening," Rowan said finally. "It was the best evening I'd had in years," Maya said simply. Rowan looked away. Looked back. Something in her face shifted, not a decision exactly. A recognition. "I should say good night," she said. "Yes." But she didn't move for a moment. Neither did Maya. Then Rowan straightened, said quietly, "Merry Christmas, Maya," and moved away through the thinning crowd, and Maya watched her go, and felt something large and patient settle into the back of her chest like a long-term resident, not hoping for too much. Just holding something, waiting. January arrived, and with it the specific quality of Chicago winter that Maya had been warned about, and that was still somehow larger than the warnings, the kind of cold that had weight to it, that pressed against you from all directions, that made the city feel both more essential and more brutal simultaneously. She loved it, mostly. She bought better coats than she had owned in Oregon. She learned the specific subway timing that meant she could walk the minimum distance between warmth and warmth. She drank more hot drinks than she had ever drunk in her life. She worked. The Orson project went into production. The new identity was being rolled out across their communications in stages. And Maya was deeply involved, more involved than a senior designer would normally be at this stage. But Rowan had asked her to stay on through the full rollout, which Maya understood as both a professional compliment and possibly something else. She and Rowan worked together often in January. The nature of the Orson work required frequent creative decisions. And because Maya was the primary designer and Rowan was both the creative director and had a personal stake in the account, they spent hours in the glass meeting room reviewing applications, going through the production details, making the 1,000 small decisions that turn a concept into a reality. These hours were productive and professional and sometimes often actually fun. Rowan had an eye that was relentlessly precise without being punishing. She saw things Maya had missed, not to be critical, but because she genuinely couldn't not see them. And Maya's instincts, which Rowan trusted, were fast and often right. They worked well together. Maya had known this since the type system conversation in October, but the Orson work confirmed it. Their creative sensibilities were not identical, but they were compatible in a way that felt like counterpoint. They improved each other. Maya mentioned this to Jade in the context of a general conversation about work, and Jade gave her a very long look and said, "You know, that's an extremely romantic thing to say about your boss." I said our creative sensibilities. "I heard what you said. We work well together." "It's professional, Maya." Jade set down her coffee. "I am your friend and I love you. And I need to tell you that the way you talk about her when you're not talking about her is extremely telling." Maya opened her mouth and then closed it. "She looks at you," Jade said more gently. "I've been watching for 2 months. When she thinks no one is paying attention, she looks at you. Not the way she looks at other people's work. The way she looked at the Orson boards, Maya was quiet. I don't think she's going to do anything about it," Jade continued. "Because she's, you know how she is, careful, responsible. She takes her responsibilities very seriously." "Yes, but I wanted you to know. Because I think you sometimes wonder if you imagined it." Jade picked up her coffee again. "You didn't imagine it. The thing happened on a Thursday evening in late January. It was 7:30 in the studio. was nearly empty, just Maya and Rowan, which was becoming a not infrequent occurrence because they both worked late and because the Orison final production review had been that afternoon and there were things that needed follow-up. Maya was at her desk and Rowan was in her office, which was a glass-walled room at the edge of the studio that was not as private as it looked. Because the glass was floor-to-ceiling and clear, Maya saw, at some point, that the light in Rowan's office had changed. Not gone off, the desk lamp was still on, but Rowan was no longer at her desk. She was standing at her office window with her back to the room, looking out at the city. She was just standing there. Not on her phone, not with a tablet. Just standing. Maya looked at her for a moment, then looked away. Then looked back. There was something in the quality of Rowan's stillness, something that wasn't the productive, focused stillness of Rowan thinking. Something different. She got up without entirely deciding to. She walked to Rowan's office and knocked on the open door. Rowan turned. Her face was composed, she was always composed, but her eyes, for a fraction of a second, showed something. "Sorry to interrupt," Maya said. I just wanted to check that everything was okay." Rowan looked at her for a moment. "Everything is fine," she said. In the tone of someone who uses that sentence as a reflex rather than a description, Maya looked at her. "Okay," she said and didn't move. A long pause. "It's Emma's birthday," Rowan said finally. "My niece. She's 11 today. That's a good day." "It is." "She's healthy. She's doing extremely well." Rowan turned back toward the window briefly. Sometimes I stand here and think about where we were when she was 3. And where she is now." She paused. "Gratitude, I suppose. It feels almost too large to carry sometimes." Maya stayed where she was, at the edge of the office, not coming further in unless invited. "That makes sense," she said quietly. "Something that big, it doesn't have a tidy container." Rowan looked at her. "No," she said. "It doesn't. Happy birthday to Emma," Maya said. Something moved in Rowan's face. Not a smile exactly, but warmer than the usual composure. "Thank you." Maya went to leave and Rowan said her name. She turned. "Would you?" Rowan stopped. Something visible in the pause, a decision being made. "Would you like to have dinner?" "Not now, not tonight. Just sometime. Outside of work." She said this with a directness that came, Maya understood, from some courage. "I've been thinking about it for a while. I wanted to be honest about that." Maya looked at her. In the lamplight of the office in January, with the city spread out behind her through the glass. "Yes," she said. "I would like that very much." They went on a Saturday, a detail that felt important to both of them, that it was unambiguously outside of work, that it was a choice made in personal time without the structure of the office around it. Rowan chose a restaurant in Lincoln Square, the neighborhood she'd mentioned months ago. Small, warm Italian in a deeply unfussy way, good pasta, good wine, candles on the table, in the kind of holders that have melted many times over and carry the record of many previous evenings. Maya arrived, first by 3 minutes, and was seated at a corner table when Rowan came in from the cold, still winding her scarf. And Maya watched her come through the door the way she sometimes watched things she wanted to memorize, the way she looked in her long coat, the small moment of reorientation from outside to inside, the way she saw Maya and something that wasn't quite a smile but was adjacent to one moved across her face. "Sorry if I'm late," Rowan said. Sitting, "You're exactly on time, and 3 minutes late." 3 minutes is on time. Rowan's mouth curved. "Where I come from, 3 minutes late is late. Where I come from. Showing up is what matters." They looked at each other across the small table. And something in the air was different from the office, less charged somehow and also more. Like the pressure had been released from one valve and redirected. "This is strange," Rowan said, honestly. "Being here? Strange good or strange bad?" "I don't know yet." She picked up the menu, looked at it. "Strange unfamiliar. Good unfamiliar, I think." They ordered wine, a Barolo. Rowan's suggestion, and they ate bread and they talked, and the conversation moved in the easy, branching way that good conversations do when two people have been wanting to have them for a long time and are finally allowed to. Rowan talked about Emma, fully, warmly, in a way that showed how much she loved her. She talked about the diagnosis, the years of uncertainty, The way her sister and brother-in-law had navigated the impossible, the doctors who had been extraordinary, and the systems that had failed them. She talked about how it had changed her, what she'd learned about what mattered, about what tenacity actually looked like from the inside. Maya told her about her parents, her mother, who had immigrated from Guangzhou when she was 23 and had built a life from nothing, and who was the most quietly formidable person Maya had ever known. Her father, a high school art teacher in Portland who had been the first person to take Maya's drawing seriously. The particular inheritance of being the daughter of people who had worked that hard, the way it made you simultaneously grateful and obligated, and sometimes crushing yourself under the weight of both. You feel like you have to justify the opportunities they made possible, Rowan said. Not a question. Yes, exactly. Like there's a debt I can never fully. She stopped. I know that's not how it works. They'd hate for me to think of it that way. But knowing how it works doesn't always change how it feels. No, Maya said. It doesn't. Their food came. They ate. The restaurant was warm around them, full of the soft industry of other dinners, other conversations. A child at a table across the room was being given a bowl of gelato for what was clearly a birthday and was treating this with appropriate solemnity. Can I ask you something? Maya said, yes. Friday night in October, when it was raining and we walked to the end of the block under your umbrella. Did you know that was going to be awkward? For both of us? Rowan was quiet for a moment, turning her wine glass by the stem. I knew it was going to be something, she said. I'd been trying to maintain a certain appropriate distance. That was a failure of that attempt. You call it a failure. From a professional standpoint. From a personal standpoint? She looked at her. From a personal standpoint, it was the best 45 seconds I'd had in some time. Maya breathed. Me too. That was part of the problem, Rowan said quietly. Yes. A pause. Why are you doing this differently now? The dinner. What changed? Rowan considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. I spent a long time telling myself that the professional consideration was sufficient reason, she said. That what I wanted personally was less important than what was appropriate professionally. She paused. And I still take the professional dimension seriously. I do. I don't want this to be something that compromises your position here or creates any kind of imbalance. It won't, Maya said. I would tell you immediately if it did. I believe you. She looked at her hands for a moment, then back at Maya. But I've been watching you work for 4 months. And I've been listening to you and thinking about what you've said, and I started to feel like I was being overly rigid about something. Like I was using the professional concern as a shield against something that frightened me. Maya was very still. You're frightened? I'm careful. A small, contained exhale. I've been careful for a long time. It has served me well and cost me things. I'm trying to figure out where the line is between appropriate caution and just, she looked for the word, fear disguised as principle. Maya looked at her across the table. At the lamplight on her face, the way she held her honesty like something she wasn't entirely comfortable with but was committed to. For what it's worth, Maya said. The careful woman I met in a bar in September was the same woman who told me imposter syndrome was a sign I cared enough to be scared. And I thought, whoever this is, she tells true things in a very direct way, and I would like to keep talking to her for a very long time. Rowan looked at her. The smile this time was real and warm, and it did what it always did to Maya's chest. I meant that, she said. I know you did, Maya said. That's why it worked. They were at the restaurant for 3 hours. 3 hours that moved the way some rare evenings move, not quickly, because nothing was left out, but without friction. Without the self-consciousness that usually comes from early stages of something. By the end of the bottle of Barolo, they were sitting closer together. Not touching, but in the proximity that people settle into when they've stopped managing the distance. When the bill came, they argued briefly and good-naturedly about who was paying. And Rowan won because she was slightly faster. And Maya said, next time without. Thinking about it and then was very aware of having. Said it, and Rowan said, next time back, in the tone of a commitment. They put on their coats in the small foyer of the restaurant and went out into the January cold. The street was quiet and bright with snow that had fallen while they were inside. covering the sidewalk in a clean, unmarked layer. It snowed, Maya said. Looking up, it does that here. Dry but fond, Maya turned her face up to the dark sky for a moment, feeling the cold and the stillness. Then she looked at Rowan, who was standing beside her. Watching her, I'm glad we did this, Maya said. So am I. They stood on the snowy sidewalk, and the space between them had the particular quality of space that is about to be closed. Maya felt it. She could see that Rowan felt it. Rowan lifted one hand and tucked a strand of Maya's hair back from her face, a small gesture. Careful, deliberately gentle. And Maya felt it everywhere. Good night, Maya, she said. Then, quieter, I'll see you Monday. I'll be there, Maya said. Rowan's car was on the street. She got in. Maya walked to the subway, not cold at all. They were careful. This was the agreement, arrived at over 3 more dinners and 2 long walks and 1 Sunday afternoon in an art museum. Standing in front of a painting they'd both been drawn to independently and found each other in front of, they were going to be careful. Rowan would be rigorous about the professional dimension. Maya's work would be evaluated exactly as it always had. Her trajectory would be based entirely on merit. Nothing about their personal relationship would affect the professional one. Maya agreed to this completely. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was simply the arrangement that made everything else possible. But there was a they now. This was the undeniable, extraordinary fact that it happened slowly, the way the best things do. The dinners continued. Rowan brought Maya to a concert she'd had tickets to, contemporary classical music in a small venue. 2 composers Maya didn't know and Rowan knew well and explained in quiet whispers between pieces. Maya brought Rowan to the restaurant in Ukrainian village she'd been wanting to share. And they ate dumplings and borscht in a tiny back booth, and Maya told stories about Portland, and Rowan laughed. And laughed again. And Maya stored each laugh like a rare and particular treasure. They walked along the lake on weekends when the weather allowed, which in February was infrequently, but in March more often. And then in April the lakefront opened up into something astonishing, the water so wide it looked like an ocean. The Chicago skyline behind them, the light on the water like something that had been promised and delivered. They walked and talked and were comfortable in each other's silence, which Maya thought was the deeper test. They didn't rush. Rowan's carefulness was real and Maya respected it. They were building something, and building something meant taking time. They held hands on walks. They sat close at concerts. Goodnight meant, for a while, just that. A goodnight, a long look. A held quality of parting. The first time Rowan kissed her was on a Friday evening in late March, outside Maya's apartment building after a dinner that had gone on very long because neither of them wanted it to end. They'd been standing on the sidewalk in the particular liminal moment of parting. And Rowan had been saying something about a gallery show she wanted to see. Something practical and easy, and had stopped mid-sentence and looked at Maya and said, "May I?" Just that. And Maya had said yes. And Rowan had kissed her, softly, carefully, like something she'd been thinking about for a very long time and wanted to do exactly right, and it was the warmest thing Maya had ever felt. And it was worth every moment of the 6 months that had preceded it. Spring deepened. The trees in Lincoln Park bloomed. The city came out of its shell. Tentatively at first, and then with the particular Chicago enthusiasm for any weather above 40 degrees. People eating outside in what Maya would have considered deeply inadequate temperatures in Oregon, but which qualified as glorious here. Maya flourished. She knew this without false modesty. The work she was producing at Lumen in her 2nd and 3rd fiscal quarters was some of the best work of her life. She could feel it in the doing of it. The particular confidence that comes from being in the right place, doing the right work with people who understood it. She was given more complex projects. She began to mentor one of the junior designers, a young woman named Sophie who reminded Maya of herself at 24, talented and scared and not entirely sure of either. Maya found that she was good at this, at seeing what Sophie needed and giving it without overwhelming. She and Rowan were discreet at work. This was important to them both. They maintained the professional dynamic that had been established. Maya was managed with the same standards as everyone else on the team, not favored, not protected from criticism. And Rowan's feedback was, if anything, slightly more demanding with Maya than with others. A precision she applied because she trusted Maya to receive it, and because Maya suspected She needed to be beyond reproach in her own mind about this. Maya didn't mind. She would rather be held to a higher standard by someone who believed in her than coddled by someone who didn't. Their colleagues, for the most part, were kind about it when they found out, not with any announcement. Just the quiet accumulation of understanding that happened in close working environments. Jade obviously had known almost from the beginning. Marcus, when it became impossible to not know, gave Maya a hug and said, "About damn time. I've been watching you both pretend you're not crazy about each other for 6 months." Sandra from accounts affected not to notice and was extremely pleased. For both of them, the formal conversation with HR happened at Rowan's instigation. She filed the appropriate disclosure, put the appropriate structures in place, was as transparent as she could be about the dynamic and the steps she was taking to ensure Maya's professional interests were protected. Maya was present for part of this conversation and watched Rowan handle it with the direct, careful thoroughness she brought to everything and fell a little more in love with her. The summer was long and golden, and Maya could not have told you afterward exactly how it had passed because it had the quality of good time full of things that matter, time that stretches because you're paying attention. She met Emma in July. Rowan's niece had come to Chicago with Rowan's sister, Carolyn, for a long weekend, and Rowan had asked with a particular quality of careful casualness that didn't quite hide the weight of the question if Maya would like to join them for dinner. Emma was 11 and small for her age and possessed of an alertness and a dry humor that made her seem both younger and older simultaneously. She had Rowan's eyes, that hazel quality, greenish and golden, and she regarded Maya across the dinner table with a scientific interest that Maya found entirely charming. "Are you my aunt's girlfriend?" Emma asked, approximately 20 minutes into dinner. In the tone of someone who has decided small talk is inefficient, Carolyn made a strangling noise. Rowan said, "Emma, what?" "I'm asking a simple question." "It's a simple question," Maya agreed. She looked at Emma levelly. "Yes, I'm Rowan's girlfriend." Emma considered this. "Do you work with her?" "I do. Isn't that complicated?" "A little bit," Maya said honestly. "We're careful about it." Emma nodded, apparently satisfied with this. "Aunt Ro is careful about everything," she said with the particular affectionate dryness of someone who has observed this for a long time. "She is," Maya agreed. Rowan was looking at her from across the table with an expression that was trying to be composed and wasn't quite making it. "I like her," Emma said to Rowan. "She's direct." "She is," Rowan said. "I know." Later that evening after dinner, while Carolyn and Emma were getting settled at the hotel, Rowan and Maya walked through the warm summer night, and Rowan reached out and took Maya's hand and held it quietly. "Thank you," Rowan said. "For what?" "For being exactly yourself with her." A pause. "She doesn't respond well to performance. She's had too much of that, too many people performing kindness at her. She can tell the difference." "She's remarkable," Maya said. "You should be incredibly proud." "Of Emma?" "Of all of it. Of who you are with her, what you built for Orison because of her, the person you..." She stopped. Started again. "I'm proud of you. For what you've made here." Rowan was quiet for a moment. Then she stopped walking and turned to face Maya, right there on the summer sidewalk, and looked at her with the full, unguarded quality that Maya had first glimpsed across the studio floor on a Monday morning. That had been appearing more and more frequently these past months. "I love you," Rowan said. Simply, directly, the way she said things that were true, Maya felt the words settle into her like light into a room. "I love you too," she said. "I think I've been in love with you since a bar in September." "I know," Rowan said. "I've been in love with you since a bar in September too." A slight pause. "I just took longer to say it. You were being careful." "I was." She raised their joined hands, pressed her lips briefly to Maya's knuckles. "I'm still careful." "But I know," Maya said softly. "I can see you. There are things that happen after the declaration, not dramatic things, but real ones. The way two lives start to weave together. The weekday mornings when you make coffee for someone else because you've learned how they take it. The way someone's apartment starts to feel like yours before you have the conversation about it. The way you start to know what someone needs before you have to ask." Rowan's apartment was on the north side, close to the lake in a building with high ceilings and large windows. It was, as Maya expected, very clean and very considered, not cold but arranged with care. Good books. Good art, one deep comfortable sofa that didn't match anything else and was, obviously, the most used piece of furniture in the apartment. Gertrude. The cat regarded Maya with profound suspicion for approximately 3 visits, and then, on the 4th, climbed onto her lap and settled there with the authority of someone granting a significant favor. Rowan, watching from the kitchen doorway with a glass of wine, said, "She doesn't do that for just anyone," in a tone that was trying not to be moved and wasn't succeeding. Maya stayed over more and more often. Rowan learned that Maya couldn't be spoken to for the first 20 minutes of the morning and adapted. Maya learned that Rowan's running was not optional and that she was, in fact, much easier to be around after it, and began occasionally joining her on weekend mornings, which she had not anticipated enjoying and found she did. They ran along the lake as the seasons changed again, and Maya thought that there were worse ways to understand a city than emotion. Besides someone who loved it. In November, exactly 1 year after the Orison presentation, Maya was in the glass meeting room, the same one, the one with the small round table putting together materials for a new pitch when Rowan came in. She came in and closed the door behind her, which Maya registered as slightly unusual, and sat down across from her. "I need to talk to you about something," Rowan said. Maya looked at her. The seriousness in her expression, well calibrated in the particular way Rowan's seriousness always was, had a different quality today. Not professional, personal. "Okay," Maya said. "The creative director role," Rowan said. "I'm moving into a broader organizational position, working with the partners on agency strategy, business development, and national expansion initiative." She paused. "My current role is going to be open." Maya was very still. And you're one of the people I think is ready for it." She held Maya's gaze. "This is not because of us. I need you to know that. This is because you are, objectively, one of the best creative thinkers this agency has. The work you've done this year, the team you've built around you, the way you think you're ready." Maya looked at her for a long moment. "You've thought about the optics." "Extensively," Rowan said. "It will be a formal process. External candidates, internal candidates, evaluated by the partners with me recused from the decision. Completely above board." "That's the right way to do it," Maya said. "Yes, and you're telling me first." "I'm telling you first," Rowan said, "because you deserve to decide if you want to pursue it. And because," she paused, "because whatever happens with the role, I didn't want you to find out from someone else and think I kept it from you." Maya looked at the table between them, at the board she'd been working on, at the window with the city behind it, the November sky gray and specific. "Will it be weird?" she said. "If I get it?" "You're still in the building. We've been navigating a complex professional relationship since September of last year," Rowan said. "We've gotten rather good at it." Maya laughed softly. "We have, haven't we? You should apply," said quietly, firmly, with the quality of someone who means something completely. The role was built by someone who loved this work. It should go to someone who loves it the same way. Maya looked at her, at Rowan in the small meeting room, exactly a year from when she'd said this is exceptional work, and looked at Maya with her face open for a single unguarded moment. "I'll apply," Maya said. 1 year and 3 weeks after Maya Chun walked into the amber room soaking wet from the September rain. She sat in that same bar on a Thursday evening in October with the woman she loved. They'd come back by accident, by something that felt like accident, though Rowan would later say that it had been intentional on her part. They'd been looking for somewhere quiet after a long day. Rowan had said she knew a place, and they'd walked in, and Maya had stood in the doorway and felt the particular shock of recognition that specific rooms can hold. "You brought me here on purpose," she said. "I might have." Rowan was already at the bar, entirely composed. Maya stood there for a moment looking at it. The same amber light, the same low jazz, the same leather bar stools worn smooth by years of elbows, the same warm, close atmosphere of a place that had seen many conversations and remembered none of them and made them all possible. Anyway, she sat down next to Rowan. The same corner spot, Or close enough to it. I thought about this bar a lot, Maya said. After that first night. So did I. What did you think? Rowan turned to look at her. In the amber light, she looked the same as she had that night. Composed, warm, complicated, and also different. Because Maya knew her now, knew the whole shape of her. The carefulness and the love and the runner who hated running. The woman who stood at office windows holding gratitude too large to carry. The woman who had loved someone enough to wait carefully. Until she was sure. I thought, Rowan said, that I just spent 3 hours talking to the most interesting woman I'd met in years. And that I was about to do something very stupid by hiring her. Maya laughed. You already knew? I'd read your portfolio the week before. I knew exactly who you were. She looked at the bar. I didn't know you'd walk into my bar. Your bar? I come here most Fridays. Maya shook her head, still laughing. You let me talk for 3 hours about my new job. You were very excited about it. The warmth in Rowan's voice, that particular warmth Maya could now recognize at any distance. I didn't want to interrupt. The bartender, the same man, Maya realized, the broad-shouldered one with kind eyes, brought wine without being asked. He set 2 glasses down and Rowan said, Thank you, Daniel, and he nodded and moved away. You're a regular, Maya said. I told you that. You told me you come here most Fridays. That's different. Is it? Maya picked up her glass. Looked at Rowan over the rim of it. You knew who I was. That whole night. You knew, and you sat there and let me be nervous about my new job, and you talked to me like I was just a person. You are just a person. You know what I mean. Rowan was quiet for a moment. Then, yes, I knew. And I thought, she doesn't know. She's talking to me without all of that in the way. Without who I am coloring how she talks. She turned her wine glass. It was the best conversation I'd had in a long time. Maya thought about this. You were lonely, she said gently. Rowan didn't answer immediately. Careful and lonely are related states, she said. Yes. Maya reached over and took her hand. Rowan turned her hand and held Maya's, that same firm. Warm grip from the first night, except now it stayed. For the record, Maya said, You would have been interesting to me regardless. You don't know that. I do, actually. I've worked with you for a year. I know how you are in meetings and how you are under pressure and how you are when something moves you. The creative director thing, she squeezed her hand. It doesn't make you more interesting. You were already you. Rowan looked at her. The amber light was in her eyes. That greenish gold quality that Maya could now map from memory, could close her eyes and locate. I applied for a promotion because of you, Maya said. Not because you told me to. Because you said the role was built by someone who loved the work and should go to someone who loved it the same way. And I thought, that's what she always does. She sees the thing that matters and she tells it to you directly. You'll find out about the role next week, Rowan said. I know, she wasn't worried. She'd done the work. Whatever happened, she'd done the work. And if you get it, when I get it, Maya said. Rowan's mouth curved. When you get it, she corrected, and the smile came, the full one, the warm one, the one that rearranged everything. We'll figure out the next chapter. We're good at that, Maya said. Figuring out chapters. Outside, the city moved in its October way, the rain beginning again. The kind that had started everything soft and insistent against the window glass. Inside, the bar was warm and amber and full of the quiet industry of other people having other evenings. Maya leaned into Rowan slightly. Rowan's arm came around her shoulders. I was so nervous that night, Maya said. Starting over. Not being ready. I know. I could tell. You said imposter syndrome was a sign I cared enough to be scared. You remembered that. I remember everything you said that night. Maya looked at her. It was the best evening I'd had in years. You said that then too. I meant it then. I mean it now. Except, she paused. There have been better evenings since. With you, Rowan was quiet for a moment. Then, in the particular way she said things that were simply true, many more to come. Maya raised her glass, Rowan raised hers. They drank. As the rain continued outside and the city moved around them. And the bar held them the way good places do, not forever, but for this. which was enough, and that is how it went. A rainstorm, a bar, a stranger with hazel eyes and a voice like something warm, and a woman on the edge of a new life who didn't know yet that she was also on the edge of a love. Not the convenient kind. Not the simple kind. The kind that took time and care and courage and got all three of those things back in full. The kind worth telling.